Tesla is the biggest AI project in the world.
I'll go through her today's detailed Tesla stock update, and Cathie Wood is buying more Tesla stock again. This is after buying Tesla stock on April 2nd, and 1st, and March 28th, and March 25th, and March 22nd, and March 14th, and March 6th, and March 5th. And so Ark Invest must be really happy to see this news. Tesla will unveil its Robotaxi on August 8th. And Cathie Wood must be really happy looking at this new post from Tesla showing how many FSD miles have been driven. Tesla owners have now cumulatively driven over 1 billion miles on FSD, a 50% increase in the last 90 days. Now, I can only speculate, but I think Cathie Wood is going to look at this chart and say, this is the nicest tip I've ever seen. Right here, look at that vertical line. Pay attention to this news. Clearly, today's reporting and subsequent market reaction was yet another sign that I think many analysts are not factoring in the autonomy opportunity into Tesla price expectations. And Ark Invest here is basically reiterating their $2,000 5-year Tesla stock price target. Well, actually, it's now a 4-year price target. Tasha also just said that Ark Invest is working on updating the price target of Tesla stock. And is it going to be higher? Well, here's what Cathie Wood said. This is from a few weeks ago.
Therefore, it will be higher.
Tasha just dropped a hint that the next Tesla stock price target that they are going to release will be released very soon. She said, stay tuned. The previous year Tesla stock price target was released on April 20th, so I expect it to come out roughly at the same time this year.
We don't think Tesla is a car company. It's a robot company. It's an energy storage company. Those are under Sam's purview. It is an artificial intelligence company. Tasha has done our work on autonomous mobility, working with our AI experts. And we think those technologies are converging, and that Tesla is the biggest AI project in the world. And if all of the AI stocks that are running are going to prove correct, if that run appreciation in the stock market is going to prove out, it will be because of companies like Tesla that are going to harness artificial intelligence and transform this world, and in Tesla's case, transform mobility.
The chief futurist of Ark Invest, Brett Winton, shared some thoughts about the latest Tesla stock news. Go back to 2016. Imagine learning that Tesla has changed the priority order and production timeline for the right-hand drive Model 3 versus left-hand drive, and then reporting out Tesla is scrapping its long-touted Model 3. Reuters did not mention anything about FSD when they released that article. Strategically, even as FSD becomes Robotaxi capable, Tesla will still need to sell units into geographies, for example Europe, that are intentionally subjecting their populations to regulatory privation, which we have just seen. They basically want your vehicle to ask you for permission before making a turn or dodging an accident, basically. Oh, an accident is coming up, press allow. Oh, it's too late. That's one reason why I left Europe, by the way, because doing business there is just so much more difficult. You basically have paperwork for paperwork. It's crazy. Tesla will need data to train FSD on those driving cultures and will want to prime the pump with unit supply for when regulatory authorities ultimately come to their better senses. But it makes sense that those geographies will fall back in the priority order as Tesla becomes more confident in robotaxi commercialization. Crudely, the net present value of a commercialized robotaxi to Tesla is 50x that of a $25,000 vehicle sold once, says Brett Winton. And that's because you sell a $25,000 car once, you yield an optimistic $2,500 in income once. Deploy a robotaxi at $1 per mile, yield $25,000 in income annually. One robotaxi is worth $25,000 car sales on a present value basis. Indications that Tesla is more confident in the latter model are massively positive. He presents us with some very rough math. A robotaxi operating 12 hours a day at 25 miles per hour does 100,000 miles per year. There are 1 trillion miles addressable at less than $1 per mile per hour research at a 50% platform fee. and 50% operating margin on that net revenue. Tesla takes off $25,000 in operating earnings. Net present value difference over 7 years at a 10% discount rate yields a 50x difference. Lots of ways to get there, but it's obviously materially more value. I actually just updated my Tesla stock valuation model yesterday, and my numbers are significantly different from what Ark Invest writes here. However, I am all in Tesla stock in my stock portfolio, so our conclusion is very similar in a sense that Tesla stock is gonna go up, way up in the long term. So if you want to see what I see and why I am all in Tesla stock in my stock portfolio, feel free to click the link down below and join my Patreon and check out my valuation model.
Often we'll hear people saying that they're too expensive, the range is too short, there's not enough charging infrastructure. And all of this is changing as battery costs come down, as infrastructure continues to be built out quite rapidly. And so what's giving us so much confidence that these quarterly numbers are just short-term noise? Well, that's the fact that the Model Y was the best-selling vehicle in the world, but this essentially shows the price elasticity of demand for electric vehicles. So on the x-axis, you have the inflation-adjusted.
This is on the right-hand
yes,
chart, right?
on the right-hand chart. And on the x-axis, you have inflation-adjusted US dollars representing the MSRP of a vehicle. And then on the y-axis, you have the addressable revenue share. And the Model Y is roughly, $50,000. And if you see that on the chart, that's, roughly 5 to 10% of the addressable market is available at those price points. So the fact that this was the best-selling vehicle in the world and it's operating in such a small part of the overall market shows that consumers want affordable electric vehicles. And so when we see battery costs coming down over the next 2 to 3 years, when we hear that Tesla's on the way to coming out with a low-cost electric vehicle, where then the addressable market jumps up to the 50% plus addressable revenue, that's opening up the market, almost tenfold from where it was. So we think that these short-term delivery numbers, it's almost a throwback to when the Model 3 was ramping. It's missing the forest for the trees in the whole transition to electric.
This does remind me of 2019 when Tesla stock was struggling because of all of this controversy. It feels like that moment again. And you have pointed out something here, Sam, that I think is really important. The Model Y being the best-selling car in the world, even though its price point is so much higher than, I think it's the Toyota Camry. That tells you that there are people reaching because they love these cars.
There's the news Ford pushing back its EV plans, focusing more on hybrid as well. And I think the easy way to look at this is that hybrid relative to battery electric, the economics made most sense in 2012 when battery prices were still extremely high. If you go forward, 3 years to 2027, when battery costs are going to drop even further, the economics just keep on deteriorating for hybrids. So we think this is another short-term oriented mistake from traditional automakers.
Kevin replied to Brett Winton, 3.2 trillion miles driven in America annually per 2022. Let's assume 100% of America and 0% of international. So everyone uses robotaxis in America. Even at 1 penny per mile, 1/100th of Brett, that's still $32 billion per year. Net would be about $16 billion to Tesla, or 50% more than their annual earnings today. However, there's one more thing that is being completely ignored. There will be many more miles driven. Because why will you want to get into a stinky bus when you can call yourself a private robotaxi, have no crazy people around you, and sit in silence? Or you can listen to music as loud as you like. Robotaxis will kill public transportation in most cases. I'm so in agreement with Farzad here, in the age of AI, Tesla and X appear to be gigantic data moats. Also, we would have to consider people might drive more, but there would be competition, etc., etc. That's why I'm saying even at just 50% of 1/100th of what Brett is saying, yes, this is a big deal long term. So long term, Brett and Cathie Wood have the right vision on this. And this was only the US. You know, there's also China, and there's also Canada and Mexico, and there's all of Europe and Africa and South America. However, I just did something that I usually don't do. I watched a full video from Meet Kevin, and in the short term, he's not bullish at all about Tesla stock. My understanding is he's not short anymore, and in the long term, he is a pretty big bull, but not in the short, and maybe not even in the medium term, maybe next 1 to 2 years.
Because we have centered our research around Wright's law, and because Ford and GM, because GM's doing the same thing. They're both pulling back on pure electric cars because they're not profitable. Well, they're not going to be profitable unless they scale them. It's almost not possible. It's certainly ceding more of the electric vehicle market to Tesla longer term, right? If they're not putting in those investment dollars and scaling now.
Definitely. I think it makes it for anyone who's pushing through for pure electric, they're going to have more battery capacity at lower prices. And so it kind of falls into their hands. It somewhat reminds me of COVID when they canceled chip orders, very short-term oriented again, and then spent the next 2 years saying, you know, we're supply constrained because the chip manufacturers shut down those plants and they can't get it back. So I feel like this is going to be another moment of regret.
The most dramatic improvement that we're seeing in this latest version of FSD is really on city streets. You know, I know personally from my Tesla, I use it here in New York City and in Connecticut, and I've noticed a really dramatic improvement again on those city streets that, you know, previously the car was a lot more cautious. It's just becoming more human-like. And ultimately, we think that autonomous driving could be 2/3 of the future enterprise value of Tesla. So last year, we published our price target for 2027. We estimated that Tesla could reach $2,000 per share in our base case. We're working on updating that work right now, so please look out for that update. But I think that is, again, something that the street is really not baking in here, the importance of autonomous driving.
Sawyer makes a prediction. It took Tesla 3.5 years to hit 1 billion miles driven on FSD. I predict Tesla will hit 2 billion FSD miles in the next 45 to 60 days. I have been driving on FSD, and unless you go downtown, it's really good. And even in downtown Vancouver, it's still pretty good. You'll just have an intervention every few minutes, but not necessarily a safety or a critical related intervention. But I have been driving around a city of about 200,000 people, and I can go without interventions for a pretty long time. I actually did that multiple times. These were drives that I often complete, and I was able to do them without interventions. And even the Tesla bear, Tesla economist, admits that if the progress continues at the same pace for FSD, in 4 years, FSD is going to be an order of magnitude safer than human driving, much safer. And I cannot wait to see the look on Gordon Johnson's face when FSD is finally solved. And you know, I think it's unfair to call Gordon Johnson a Tesla bear. I think he's a Tesla panda because, I mean, he looks good. Look at how he dresses, but he acts silly. Now, I don't know about you, but I just feel sorry looking at pandas. I mean, it looks cute, but oh well. Really not so bright, are they? Oh, so Tesla Panda, not bad. And Elon Musk responded with, pretty much. To this post, Tesla has already won the race to autonomy and nobody knows it. Elon says it has been staggeringly difficult to make generalized self-driving work, requiring all that you describe above and more. The investment in training compute, gigantic data pipelines, and vast video storage will be well over $10 billion cumulatively this year. But that is nothing compared to the $250 billion in cars on the road with Tesla-designed AI inference computers being trained by their drivers.
I think we're all noticing from our own experience with FSD 12 that, as you said, Tasha, the drive is more human-like when it's in FSD, and in fact, it's maybe a little more because I've noticed in terms of lane changing on surface streets that my Y is perhaps a little more aggressive than I might have been, and it's safe and it's the correct thing to do. It's getting me where I want faster than otherwise would be the case. I don't know if you all are having the same experience.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think again that's really where we're seeing the major improvement is on the off-highway portion, which is really difficult to drive, arguably more difficult to drive. And on speed, we also just heard that Elon said that Tesla is no longer AI training compute constrained, which is huge. So, I mean, that could mean a variety of factors. We've written about this. It could mean maybe they got more NVIDIA chips. Maybe he sees line of sight to, getting those orders in. But either way, what it means for FSD and autonomous driving is that the updates that you'll get on the over-the-air updates should be able to come more frequently because we knew before that really was the gating factor was training compute. So you can think of this as now Tesla takes in all the videos, the clips from customers. They're able to act and make actionable insights on that information and update the software more frequently. They've said that this will happen roughly every 2 weeks. That seems faster than before because people had previously been reporting, a major update comes about once a month. So it's really just getting them closer to that milestone of, eventually us being able to take our hands off the wheel and enabling a robotaxi service.
And do you remember how bearish James was on FSD just about a month ago? That is a lot of miles, and the curve is now going vertical. Supervised FSD is definitely safe. Although so far, having V12.3.3 installed in my vehicle for a few days, it's really safe, but I don't need to intervene. I had, after multiple hours of driving, I had one safety-related disengagement. But compared to V11, I would have had dozens probably. After Elon Musk announced that Robotaxi will be unveiled on August 8th, for which, by the way, I totally saw through because I have a lot of family in Asia. Chinese consider the number 8 a lucky number. The stock immediately rallied in the aftermarket. And what does Electric say? Electric has been really negative about FSD, historically speaking. It is making some Tesla owners nervous because it could open the door to Tesla focusing on achieving self-driving on this new hardware rather than on existing vehicle fleet as promised and as sold to customers for years. In fact, the unveiling is going to tell current FSD owners a lot. If it is unveiled with the same or very similar sensor suite, meaning camera only, it would be good news. The camera placement is also going to be interesting. If it's roughly the same, then Tesla, of course, is going to be able to use all of the data that it has accumulated up until now. But if the camera placement is very different, it would be slightly bearish for the existing fleet. But looking at how my Model 3 can drive me from place to place without interventions of any kind multiple times, I think the current camera placement is just fine. Steven Mark Ryan had a few words to say about all of this news. Whiners, oh my god, margins are collapsing, short-term EV demand collapsing, sell, do something, Elon. Steven says, don't sleep on autonomy. Whiners continue, Elon bad, world ending, wah. These dumb mother freaks will be very quiet a few years from now because autonomy. And Steven basically states that this is a mic drop moment from Elon Musk. Oh, Steven, but you say the same thing every day. Say something new. How about you panic more about short-term margins, please, to prove you are credible, you stupid fanboy. Stop talking about autonomy and FSD, you idiot. You need to panic about short-term auto margins. Such a clown. Unsubbed. Goodbye. Steven says he had many comments on his YouTube video saying 1 year is long-term. Long-term. Keep in mind that before, even 6.5 years would have been proven to not be long-term enough. I wonder if the stock is going to drop further, and when will finally Wall Street actually realize that FSD is going to be a big deal for Tesla.
The other point that I don't think we are even making enough is the safety that that we're going to see thanks to FSD, and in fact, it's not even a futures oriented comment. We're already seeing Tesla as the safest car in the world. Remember, Volvo built its brand on this. Tesla, we believe, has surpassed Volvo.
Yeah, so if you look at the figures that Tesla reports, which are the number of accidents in both drivers that use autopilot and do not use autopilot. And actually, they've also reported FSD specifically in one of their presentations. And this is in our Big Ideas report. If you adjust for, pre the single stack update. So before city streets and highway driving was in a more integrated architecture, actually driving on a city street or a surface street I said it was more complicated because although it's fewer miles driven on these streets, it's actually more accidents on these streets. So if you adjust again for that update, it looks as if a car that is using FSD is roughly 5 times safer than a car that's not using autopilot. So you can think of that as a human-driven Tesla. And then, a human-driven Tesla has all these already baked in assisted driving features. So when you look at the national statistics for driving compared to the national average, it's even safer than that. So 5 times safer FSD. If you look at Tesla's most recent safety reports, even if you don't make that surface street adjustment, it's still 3 to 5 times faster. If you look at sort of the past 2 years, 3 to 5 times safer if you look at the past 2 years. So cut a number of different ways. We already have early evidence that these features are saving us in our everyday driving, and we have a lot of anecdotal evidence about that as well.
There's also more good news about Tesla sharing that latest FSD data. Elon Musk before said that it would likely take about 6 billion autonomous miles before a self-driving system gets worldwide regulatory approval. And we are already at 1 billion miles, and the growth is going to be exponential from here on. And Dr. Know-It-All predicts that the numbers by next year will make this look flat. And I strongly disagree with Gene Munster here. The biggest factor in the timing of Robotaxi is out of Tesla's hands. It's state approvals. Crazy to think the hardest part of autonomy is getting past lawmakers. I so strongly disagree with this, unless he's saying that FSD is basically solved already and it's a done deal. There are places already where robotaxis are approved. Washington Post writes, by default, driverless passenger vehicles and trucks can ride anywhere in the United States unless a state explicitly says they cannot. That means companies can test and operate their vehicles across most of the country. 24 states, including Texas, Florida, Arizona, and Nevada, specifically allow driverless operations, according to data compiled by Aurora, while another 16 states have no regulations specific to autonomous vehicles. The remaining 10, including California, Massachusetts, and New York, place limits on autonomous vehicles within their borders. It's not going to be a massive issue. And also, the moment it is evidently clear that FSD is safer than human driving, investors will buy Tesla stock, people will buy Tesla vehicles in the hopes to make money from FSD robotaxi vehicles. So demand is going to be much higher for Tesla vehicles. Investors are going to go crazy. So the approvals don't even need to happen very, very fast. Troy made a table that shows us how many days it took Tesla to produce 1,000 units of a vehicle after it was unveiled. He just added Robotaxi here. You can see that with the models that really mattered, Tesla got it done within roughly 1 to 1.5 years for the Model S, Model 3, the Model Y. And I think it would be fair to say that it's not going to be just Robotaxi. Now, the unveiling may not be of both vehicles, but I would say Robotaxi / next generation vehicle that will cost about $25,000.
I don't think anyone's really thinking about the impact on Tesla of robotics generally and humanoid robots longer term. And this is purely a call option, right?
Yeah, and they're actively working on this, but we've sized the market as a potential $24+ trillion global revenue opportunity, roughly half of which in manufacturing and roughly half of which could be in household robotics. And I think there probably will be a lot of learning taken from autonomous driving to the robotics side. So we're excited to see what they do there.
Now, I've seen a lot of people say that the only reason why Elon Musk made that announcement yesterday is because of the Reuters article. But check this out. The Tesla Robotaxi unveil will happen on August the 8th. Okay, so 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 4 equals 8. That's 2024. So that's another 8. And that's in 125 days. 1 plus 2 plus 5 equals 8 also. Now, often Omar has proven to be too optimistic, but here I'm not so sure. I estimate that Tesla is now adding well over 3 million FSD miles per day. So 1.1 billion a year. The first billion took 3.5 years. The second billion will take less than 1. It could even happen before the end of the year. Bradford commented, in my opinion, the second billion FSD miles driven should only take 3 months. And this is a major point that Omar is making. In human driving, there is a fatality roughly every 100 million miles. FSD now has 1 billion miles with no known fatalities. If human drivers had driven these 1 billion miles, statistics suggest that 10 people would be dead. Even though FSD still makes mistakes, I think I am definitely safer when I turn on FSD V12, because often it just notices things before I do. I think this largely makes sense. I extended the last inflection point from Tesla's FSD miles driven chart. I was actually slightly conservative with the line angle, so if it continues at this rate, then miles driven will hit 2 billion by September, if not sooner. However, we do also need to think about FSD free trials. Right now, we have more people driving on FSD because of these free trials, and I certainly do not expect every single person to continue with an actual subscription. So the data collection might actually slow down here a little bit, and there could be less people driving on FSD after that 30-day trial period, unless Tesla somehow just decides, okay, let's give everyone a much longer FSD free trial because we want to have more data and more FSD miles driven sooner. But then there's one more important thing to consider. On V11, I did use it, but definitely not every single time, and when I would be in a rush, which is often, almost every single time, I would not use it when I was in a rush because I can just drive faster myself than I was able to get to my destination on V11. The only thing that FSD V12 does slower is getting through stop signs because it comes to a complete full stop exactly at the line, which is often, I mean, you stop at that line and you can't really see, is the traffic coming towards you or not, because you have a building or something that's obstructing your view, so you have to move forward. So it stops, then it moves forward, then it stops again. I hate it. When I drive, I just stop where I need to stop, where I can actually see if someone is coming towards me or not, unless there's a pedestrian crossing or something like that. But I can easily overcome that by just pressing on the accelerator pedal, and then it's no issue at all. So keeping in mind that existing FSD owners are going to drive a lot more going forward, I think there is a reasonable case to be made that this exponential is going to continue. Now, my personal prediction is that we are going to reach 2 billion FSD miles sometime this year. The bull case would be within 3 months, and the bear case would be 1 year.
The number of miles between accidents for the average car on the road is roughly 200,000. For a Tesla without FSD, it's roughly 600,000. So that car, human-driven Tesla, is 3 times safer. And then the number with FSD is 3.2 million miles. I mean, these are astonishing numbers, and I don't think anyone's going to be able to catch Tesla on this, not anytime soon.
Also, do you remember when Elon Musk said recently FSD should be really shining bright by late April or May, because there are a few more important updates coming. And as new updates come, I think that will sort of force all existing FSD owners that up until that point have not been overly thrilled with FSD to give it another chance, which will again increase the number of miles driven on FSD. For context, by the way, Waymo and Cruise are at less than 50 million cumulative miles combined across a fleet of less than 1,000 vehicles. Shout out goes to Bradford for predicting that a lot more people will be driving on V12 and that this chart is gonna go exponential. He said it 2 weeks ago. Check out my updated Tesla stock valuation model down below on Patreon, and you will see exactly how much I'm willing to pay for Tesla stock right now for one single share. My name is Matt Post. Just like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and I will see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for watching.